What's up, guys? I just wanted to touch on this article a little bit from The Verge. Iowa Caucus fracas shows we're still too ignorant about how apps work. Um, so I'm not a professional, but I have developed an app before, so I have a little bit of understanding of what's going on here. But the consulting group that made the app Shadow was paid just over $60,000 to develop the app, far less than it actually cost to develop, which I think that's the opposite. I mean, you need some servers and stuff for it all to work, but you can pay Amazon Web Services to host everything, and I could make that app for 10 grand maybe. That's crazy. Anyways, the party insisted on security through obscurity, arguing that talking about the app too much would give hackers a heads up to attack it. So right here, they already know. The DNC already knows about getting hacked. I don't know if you guys know about what the blockchain is, but one of my favorite things about Andrew Yang is that he wants to do blockchain voting. Well, I'll touch back on that a little bit, but there's a ledger system where everything has to check out, or else it sends like an alert. I mean, it always checks out, but it can't not check out. You'll know that it didn't check out. That's the beauty of the blockchain. Anyways, whatever. Let's keep reading. We'll come back to that. The app was rushed out so quickly that it had to be distributed via two platforms mobile developers use to beta test their software. Test Flight, so this is for Apple phones, and this is for Android phones. So what this is like when I develop my app and I'm working with my developer, they can send me an IPA. I did iPhone only app. Either way, whatever. So they would send me an IPA file, and then I can install it via Test Flight and test it on my device and make sure that the functionality works or whatever thing we're working on. They would send me updates. API worked with the development company to do my app, but so that's what these are. And so to install these, you need to be registered as a developer too, which is no easy task. But installing an app via these methods is not simple for even savvy users. I mean, I didn't have a problem with it at all, but sure. And having voters installed on their personal phones has security implications that I can't even begin to enumerate. This is huge. Like they should have made a blockchain is what they should be doing with voting. And Andrew Yang already knows this. Okay, we'll come back to that. The app required two-factor authentication, good, but the instructions were apparently not sufficient, leading to yet more frustration. The New York Times reports that some precinct chairs also took pictures of the worksheets they had been given, the pins fully visible, and tweeted them out in frustration. Had the app worked, the information might have been given trolls or hackers a chance to download the program and tamper with it. Yikes. So then you're dealing with precinct chairs who don't even know about security. Every time I go to vote in my local place here, I tell the precinct people, they're like, I walk in and they go paper or digital, and I go, either way you're going to put it through a digital machine, aren't you? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, so is it really paper? They're like, yeah, you fill it out here on the paper, then you slide it through the machine. I'm like, I know, but that's digital. Like, they don't even understand that. And I always say to them, do you ever watch the documentary Hacking Democracy? And they're like, no, never heard of it. And it's like, it's made by a precinct person just like you. And they show how you can hack the machine from a laptop out in front. And like at the end of the movie, they all do like a fake test with this hacker guy out in the parking lot. And they put in their votes, and they come out completely different from when they put it in. And I tell them about this every single time. I'm like, why don't you guys just count the votes? I'm from a town of like 5,000 people. It's like, just count up the votes. It's not that hard. Okay. What's more, as Nick Stat notes, the app was distributed using the Test Fairy platform's free tier and not its enterprise one. It means Shadow didn't even pony up for the Test Fairy plan that comes with a single sign-on authentication, unlimited data retention, and end-to-end encryption, which I never use Test Fairy. This is for Android. I'm assuming, because the other one's for Apple. So maybe there's like a free one and a paid one, but $60,000 they couldn't even pay for that. Okay. What's so stupid about this is if they did a good job, they could have contracts for years through the government. It's like, just do it right. Now they're never going to get business ever. Shadow itself reportedly did not have the coding chops to pull off the app in the first place, especially on such a tight timeline. How carefully was this vetted? The whole ecosystem of tech for campaigns is dysfunctional in the first place. with the wheel getting reinvented every 4 years and widespread distrust in publicly available tools. I want to read this a little bit later, but Shadow's previous products cause alarm among security experts. This includes members of the Biden campaign, which ended its partnership with Shadow after its texting platform did not pass our cybersecurity checklist, a Biden staffer. So I wonder if this texting platform was, where Biden did that terribly stupid go to Biden303030.com. Had no idea what he was talking about a text program. Another reason why this Biden guy should not have anything to do. He doesn't even know what texting marketing is or how to. We don't need anybody in the White House who doesn't understand technology, even to that degree. Anyways, the app itself wasn't stress tested, and the errors it showed on election night were singularly unhelpful. Which I don't know what this all means, but basically they didn't test it. They didn't put volume on it and test it. Local volunteers realized the fiasco was coming, and the party did not adjust to open up more phone lines to accommodate the change. And here's the one. This is the part that I really want to read here. I remember all of the drama and concern around Diebold's election machines in the early 2000s, which this was 2004 specifically. I remember the distrust and widespread call for paper ballot backups. Luckily, Iowa at least learned the latter lesson. Well, so here's what I remember. I've been into politics since 2004 is when I really, really got into it. My friend joined the Marines, and I just started typing online, why do we go to war? And I just started researching it. Came across Perkins' book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Super good book if you want to know why we go to war. But I won't get into that here. But that's when I started getting into politics and kind of like conspiracy stuff and kind of like up this alley, of like the truth underneath the layer of myth, is what I like to call it. But here's what I remember about this. So in 2004, it was George Bush versus John Kerry, and they were using these Diebold machines. So Diebold's a company that still like counts, like when I talked about my precinct, you write on a paper ballot and you slide it through a Diebold machine. That's the company that owns it. Well, the CEO of that company sent out a letter to investors and said, don't worry. I don't know if it said this, but even though Bush's popularity rating or whatever was the lowest it ever had been at like 30%, or don't quote me on the number, but terrible, I'll make sure that Bush gets the second election, that he serves another term. Sent that out to his, investors, and it got leaked. Of course, you cannot find this anywhere on the internet. I've been trying to find this for like 4 years now. Can't find it anywhere. I read it with my own eyes. So anyways, he writes that he's going to toss the election to Bush. And remember what happened? I think it was in Florida, but there was a whole hanging Chad incident where they couldn't even recount because of the hanging Chads of paper ballots, and why that happened. They had to do a recount and everything, and that's how Bush won. It was from the recount in Florida. But why it happened was because they were trying to show that you can't trust paper because the Chads are hanging, meaning multiple ones were hanging off. They weren't sure which one they meant to check off. So if we do electronic, we'll be able to know exactly what people meant. That was what happened. I know there was distrust and widespread call for paper ballot backups. Of course, they were calling for that. But the whole hanging Chad incident was so that Diebold can control elections through these electronic voting machines. And then again, if you've seen the documentary Hacking Democracy, this lady didn't want it to be true. Makes a documentary and it's true. She's bawling at the end. It's a really good documentary about hacking democracy if you guys haven't seen it yet. But that was the whole thing around this. And so back to Andrew Yang. Andrew's plan to have, he said that it's not ready yet, which it's true. It's not ready yet. But his plan for blockchain voting is probably the best from your cell phone. It's probably the best thing we can do. I've seen a couple other videos, like a TED Talk about voting and having like a receipt and being able to look up a random number and make sure your vote was counted. That was a pretty good idea too. But I think at this age of technology, you can use your cell phone to do fingerprint voting or face recognition. And I know you can kind of fake that, but if two votes come in from the same facial recognition, activation, then one of them doesn't get counted because you can't have 2 votes per one person. So even if you were to like fake people, you know, they couldn't vote, and then they can go to their precinct and say, hey, I'm having a trouble voting. So what I think, you know, I'm not a politician, but what I think is that that is probably the best thing we can do moving forward is having blockchain voting. And then we can go into precincts for older people or people that don't have cell phones or people that just don't want to do it like that. They can still go into precincts, do the same thing, do a facial recognition or a fingerprint, and then vote and enter those votes at the precinct through the blockchain. And so the entire thing will be done through the blockchain. It'll all be ledgered. It'll all be verified. And then you have an actual vote. But knowing what we know about Diebold throwing the election for Bush, knowing what we know now about them reporting 62%, now 71%, and saying that Biden won, even though that if you watch any of the mainstream media, Biden didn't have any, or not Biden, I'm sorry, Buttigieg, he didn't have anybody in any of the corners, and all the places that they showed, he didn't have support. So I don't understand that. I can't wait to see what the official numbers are. We're still looking at this 71%. It's all convoluted too. So, but anyways, guys, that's all I wanted to say. Democracy's hacked. It's probably the last video I'll make about this. Let's move forward. Let's get off of this. We got New Hampshire coming up this Friday, so we got to put our efforts towards that. But I appreciate you guys watching, and I hope you have all have a great day. All right. Yank.